My earliest memory about just having gender confusion and such is probably around first grade, first or second. I just distinctly remember wanting to be a boy, wanting to be the dominant role in any type of relationship. My aunt, I think I went to church with her pretty much every Sunday for the first 9-ish years of my life. And I just distinctly remember things like when people would get mad at her, she would not respond. So seeing her life and always hearing about Jesus and hearing about God, it gave me really early convictions about who he was early. I was always attracted to women. I just didn't acknowledge it because I knew it was wrong. It was just kind of this underlying temptation. 17 was probably when that became more of an attraction to me than men. I was at a homecoming dance at another high school, and this young lady that I knew, she flirted with me. And that was the first time a woman ever flirted with me. It felt natural. That's honestly the best way I could describe it. I was like, this is what I want. Gay clubs, I found interest in those really quickly. Gay pride parades. I was having fun, but a deep soul satisfaction, I didn't have that. I used to tell my girlfriends the truth. I was like, hey, you know this is sin, right? They were like, why are you gay? I was like, I don't know. But I know this is not right. To know so much about the truth about God and then to continue to live contrary to it, I was always in this constant state of conviction. I was 19. I was in my room. It was as if every thought I had was just interrupted by this really strong thought that convicted me all at the same time. And it felt as if God was showing me that the sins that I loved and were in would kill me. I would die and go to hell. It's a heavy weight to know that you're a sinner and God is holy. But if that's in the Bible and that's considered true, then the other truths in the Bible about Jesus being God, Jesus being Savior, Jesus being willing to forgive those who turn from their sins, these are both true. And so I just need to believe this. It was really that simple. In my mind, I just kind of had this conversation with God. Like, I don't really want to be straight. Like, I equated salvation with just being heterosexual overnight. And so it was just like, I don't want to be straight. But then I felt like God was leading me to the fact, like, I can change your desires. I can give you the desire for a man. Surely I'm God. And then I just considered everything I loved and its consequences. Like, I really weighed the cost. Yeah, I really saw that I was holistically sinful. This one area just didn't need Jesus. All of me was messed up. Homosexuality is not the only issue plaguing a person. Sin is the issue plaguing a person. This homosexuality is just an outworking of that nature. I just saw like weed and stealing and pride and anger and arrogance and drunkenness, and everything was not worth it. Like, it just was overwhelmingly obvious that everything that I loved would not profit me anything but hell. You know what I'm saying? And I saw that God was offering me life, and I knew I had no choice. I either choose God or I choose death. I told God, I said, what you're calling me to do, I cannot do on my own. I've tried before to try to live holy, and it didn't work. But I know enough about you to know that you'll help me. And so I broke up with my girlfriend maybe a day or two later because I had to. And then that was one of the hardest decisions I had to make. But so everything after that was easy. Changed my clothes a week later, got into a church in 2 weeks. Returning to church was cool. They were like really loving people. It was like a family. It was very difficult the first 2 years. Like, God kept me. I think he kept me because I had a community around me. If I did not have Christians around me to help me and pour into me and encourage me, I would have been doomed for the most part. Who God says I am defines me, though I may have temptations, though I may have struggles, though I may see a woman that's beautiful and be tempted. Like, I have temptations to curse people out too. I have temptations to get drunk. I have temptations to watch porn, but that's just the human experience. The Christian is not void of temptation. The temptation got less powerful over time, just as I grew in knowing and loving Jesus. But in that place, I didn't want a relationship with a man either. But over time, probably 3 or so years into my walk is when I started to get an attraction towards Preston. It was weird because it wasn't, I'm attracted to this man. It was like, I'm just attracted to him and all that he is, and he just happens to be a man. And so because I'm attracted to him, I'm more than willing to love his masculinity too. I think on my wedding day, it was just kind of surreal. Everything in my life has always just been so God. You desire for this marriage and this wedding to just really show off your gospel. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that presentation. 5 weeks after my honeymoon, I found out I was pregnant. I was looking at her, and I thought to myself, if I chose to stay in the lifestyle I was in, I would never have her. I wouldn't have her. It wouldn't be Eden. And I just cried and thanked God for allowing me to experience that. The advice I would give to a parent is, first and foremost, to really trust God. Because even with my mother or my aunts or the Christians around me, they may have seen me in my condition and think, oh, it's hopeless. But they didn't know that I was running into people on the street that were convicting me. They didn't know I was seeing certain commercials that were reminding me of God. They didn't know that I would hear certain gospel songs randomly. Just be faithful, keep loving them. God changed me by showing me himself. God is aware of what's happening. It's not foreign to him. His son died for them. He loves your children more than you do.
I remember my mom and dad fighting. Then that led to sitting in a courthouse, and I found out my family was getting a divorce, and that from that moment everything would be divided. That's when confusion was inserted into my life. To expedite that confusion, I went to a birthday party, and that's where my life was forever changed. I was in 4th grade, and it was just a regular boy birthday party. You know, I was expecting PlayStation games and, you know, hide and go seek or whatever you're supposed to do in a normal sleepover as a young child. And, you know, we did all of that, play basketball outside, and then it got late, and that's when I was raped and molested by several men. And I remember those older men, you know, holding me down and teaching my peers what to do. I remember after, you know, the men were finished with me, I went outside and physically hurting, emotionally hurting, not knowing where to go or who to go to. And if I went to somebody, what was I gonna say? And if I told them, would they even believe me? I didn't think to tell my parents because I was so scared that somehow fingers would have been pointed at me. This must be my fault. So I buried it in the back of my brain, suppressed it in my soul, and hid it in my heart as I looked at the stars, crying, wondering why this happened. I ran to substance. I ran to alcohol, drugs, you know, relationships, popularity, being a bully, just anything I could do to take my mind off the situation. I would wake up in sweat and screaming of just that event replaying in my dreams. I didn't see the older guys often, sometimes at basketball games and things like that, but my peers, I ended up having relationship with them from, you know, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. I was really twisted to the point where anything and everything went. Whatever drug, whatever drink, or whatever dude or girl. And so I found myself just trying to find anything and everything to satisfy the cry in my soul. I don't know if you would consider that, you know, bisexual, homosexual, not really sure what kind of label we could put on that other than desperate. I really didn't know if God was even real. I had a desire for him in a sense, but I didn't know how to find him. My family went to church for the Christmas service and the Easter Bunny service, but I didn't know much of Jesus. There was that question of, God, if you're real, why did this happen? When my mom invited me to go to an Eddie James concert, I remember sitting on the 4th row, and I was watching the people on stage sing and dance and give God all that they got. And they were like wearing leather pants, and they loved God. They had snapback hats on, and they were saved. And I was like, this is a really rad place. And when they were singing and giving God glory, I realized that it wasn't a performance, but it was something personal for them. And I just said this in my heart, God, if you did this for them, would you do it for me? And it was an unforgettable moment. I walked up to the altar, and I didn't really know what to do or what to say. I just knew that I needed Jesus to do for me what I could not do for myself. And I lifted my hands and I lifted my heart, and it was like this love hit my life, and I began to snot and I began to cry, and I had a real encounter with Jesus. And that's when I started to fall in love with him. Eddie James came up to me after that church service where I had that moment with Jesus. And he said, I want to give you the opportunity to come on the road with me, to travel with me. He gave me 2 weeks to make a decision to go on the road. And it was through his ministry where I learned about the Lord. I don't even know if I was converted or completely saved before I went to be in full-time ministry. I went just to find out who the Lord was. And through finding him out, I fell in love with him. As I fell in love with him, he healed my heart, and he started to restore my soul and mend my mind and literally love me back to life. I fell so in love with God that I fell out of love with the lifestyle I was living. I was able to forgive those that hurt me when I realized that they were hurt as well. When I realized that it was not personal, it was spiritual. You know, sometimes we like to get back at the people that got at us. It wasn't them trying to kill, steal, and destroy me. It was Satan. They were just as much victims as I was. And as much as I need God's mercy, they do too. It's the amazing thing about mercy when you put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I've been forgiven of a lot, so why would I want to hold forgiveness back from somebody else? Often we want people to come to us, come to our church service, come to our church conference, where Jesus went to them. Jesus sat with sinners. I think we need to constantly be in the face of people that are in the homosexual community. We need to place ourselves in position to love them, to serve them, to have conversation with them, to care for them, and to be Jesus to them without trying to change them, without trying to convert them, and just share the love of the Lord that would draw them to repentance. The gospel is offensive, but we don't have to be. If we just place ourselves in their lives and show how in love we are with the Lord, people will want him.